Um, we'll start in a minute po. Naka-live na tayo sa Facebook. Uh, I'll also start recording na, then we'll start na po. Okay. Start na po tayo. So I'll just have an intro po. Then I'll turn over the microphone po to you po, Ma'am Sen. A pleasant afternoon to all despite the heavy rains and cold weather. Welcome to the second day of the new Balongibog lecture series entitled Usipon, Local Stories from Bicol and Mindanao. I'm Vanessa Macy Romero, a math faculty of the Partido State University, your moderator for this afternoon. Before anything else, I'll just give a briefer on our lecture guidelines. So first, we are streaming live on Facebook via the Museo de Isarog FB page. And we would also like to inform you that this is a recorded lecture. Second, may we remind our Zoom participants to mute their microphones during the lecture. Thirdly, we'll be having an open forum after the lecture, so everybody is encouraged to ask their questions, clarifications, or comments to the speaker. You can directly ask our speaker by raising your hand or unmuting your mics for our Zoom participants, or you can also type in your questions and comments in the chat box for our Zoom participants or in the comment section for our FB participants. And lastly, for those who want to receive an e-certificate for this session, please fill out the Google form to be given later after the lecture as an evaluation for this activity. This podcast series is sponsored and organized by the Partido State University through the following academic centers: Museo de Isarog with Earl John C. Hernandez, the curator; Center for Partido Studies, the Partido Institute of Economics, the College of Arts and Sciences, and the Past Museum student volunteers. This Zoom-enabled webinar will not be made possible without the generous support from the Office of the University President, Dr. Uji Perdesina, and the Office of the Board Secretary, Ms. Leanne O'Donnell. So yesterday, Dr. Oona Paredes of the University of California, Los Angeles, delivered a lecture on local history or histories on epidemics, mainly on cholera, of Mindanaoans, particularly of the Lumans. As opposed to what we know that Lumas were established just recently, Dr. Paredes said accounts tell otherwise. She also highlighted the indigenous group's resiliency in apocalyptic or end of the world scenarios, which is more of a theme in their stories. Okay. In today's lecture, so yesterday from the south, we'll go back north to our abode and hear about the local stories of Agta Indigenous communities. So without further ado, join me in virtually welcoming our speaker for this afternoon. She is also a fellow colleague from Partido State University, a faculty of the College of Education. Assistant Professor Josenia Penino. Ma'am Zen?
Wait, I'll share my screen first. Slideshow. Thank you, Ma'am Vanessa. Okay, I'll start now my presentation. Okay, so a pleasant afternoon to everyone. Um, so this lecture will focus on presenting a select of documented oral narratives and beliefs of Agta Indigenous communities in Partido. Specifically, in this webinar, I will provide basic information about the present-day Agta dwellers in Partido, their Usipon, or stories, and Lihi, or beliefs. So hopefully, the generated information from the field will serve as gateway for further studies in the future to delve deeper and understand their culture. So this research basically is a pure documentation of what is locally known as Usipon and Lihi. Okay, so to give a short background of the Agta in Partido, so Partido is actually home to 15,338 Agta as recorded by NCIP in 2018. And their town settlements lie at the foot of Mount Isarog in Tigaon and Goa, and coastal and non-coastal areas of Sagñay and Presentacion. And they make use of naming conventions such as kaito or gilay and giloy. Kaito means aki kang kaitong panahon, kan agta kaitong panahon, or a child of agta who lived long time ago. This is actually used to refer to fellow agta in avoidance of discrimination, and gilay to refer to senior female tribe members. And giloy, they also make use of the naming convention giloy in order to refer to senior male tribe members. And the Agta in Partido is also known as the Agta Tabangnon. So they're classified as Agta Tabangnon. Okay, so they live in houses made of light materials, or what we call kubo, with earth flooring or bamboo sheets. However, those who are economically advantaged, they have erected houses of cemented walls and flooring. And in terms of livelihood, they commonly sustain their subsistence from the main livelihood resources, such as planting of root crops, banana, rice, coconut, abaca, and they also do hunting, they do vegetable farming, abaca stripping, copra making, labor. They also work in other, or they do labor, and then they sell. And for those who live or situated in coastal areas, they do fishing. So for those who dwell on the mountains, the Mount Isarog, which is believed to be the city of Taonglipod, or supernatural beings, serve as their environmental resource. And for those who dwell on the coastal areas, the seas is their the source of their livelihood. Okay. So although most of the Agta in Partido are products of hybridity, their ethnicity is deeply evident in their strong hold to the traditional practices of their Apo or Desin, and a strong belief in the existence of the spirit world composing many types of supernatural beings that are usually embodied in the Usipon. or stories that are highlighted or that are highly interlinked in the practice of their lihi or beliefs. Okay, so to start with the main discussion, since we are going to highlight Usipon and Lihi as part of the culture of Agta, let me clarify the terms Usipon and Lihi. So many scholars have used other variants of the term Usipon. So in our study, we use the term Usipon with a U, spelled as Usipon, to refer to, or which means a story told to be listened to, whether these are transmitted orally from one generation to another generation and shared by common folks or based on a narrator's personal experiences. Other scholars have also used other variants such as Usipon, which is spelled with an O, like in the study of Lobis Nieva in 2012. Also, Conde made use of Usipon with a U, and Barbasa in 2010 made also use of Orosipon. In Waray, Bisaya, it's actually called as Susumaton in the study of Alunan in 2016. So these terminologies may vary in form, but they actually mean the same. So this is the definition of Usipon in our study. So Lihi, on the other hand, is used to refer to an Agta belief articulated through a cultural practice that may or may not have an arte or style. Lihi has a twofold definition. This is actually based on the on how the Agta Infertido perceived Lihi. So it is a shared cultural belief that is practiced at the onset of an activity or to commence an activity. It's also a community's shared cultural practice, normally complemented by a strong faith for its bisa or power to take effect. Okay. So these are the Usipon or the stories that we generated from the field. We actually generated 10 Usipon. So ano yung Usipon? By the way, in this study, there are actually two kinds of Usipon. We have the ano yung Usipon and the personal na Usipon or personal narratives. However, due to a limited time, I will only be presenting a select of suanoy na Usipon. I will no longer be dealing with the personal narratives narrated by the Agta. So there are a total of 10 generated suanoy na Usipon. We have here Usiponin Ginikanan, or stories of origin or creation, and Usiponin Misterio, or stories of mystery. The Usiponin Misterio, or stories of mystery, are still categorized into two. We have the mystery of the ship and the mystery of events. So under creation stories or stories of creation, I will only be featuring the Libtong Lake and the ginikanan ng taong lipod. And under the mystery of a ship, I'll feature Barkong Bulawan sa Tiwi. And under the mystery of events, I'll be featuring only Bakang Bulawan kang Isarog. So I'll be limiting only my presentation of Usipon on those titles, on those stories, or yeah. Okay, so let me start with the Usipon of Claveria, which is the Libtong Lake. Okay, so the Usipon of Claveria about the Libtong Lake depicts depicts how a lake in Payatan came to be. Payatan is actually a barangay in Goa, Camarines Sur. So the site where the lake is situated is believed to be inhabited by Encanto, or what is locally termed as Encantohan. In Partido, when we say Encantohan, it means that it's a place which is inhabited by mystical beings such as an Encanto. So it's actually mystical for unexplained events happen. So it has been widely known to be a dwelling place of two orphaned siblings who were believed to have existed long time ago. So the siblings, after committing a sin of marrying each other, were punished by a supreme being, or Diyos, okay, who sent a hurricane to destroy their abode that turned it into a body of water, which is now known as the Libdong Lake. That's why it's a story of creation, because it talks about the origin of the Libdong Lake. So the people believe that the spirits of the siblings linger to exist at the present time and have transformed into encantos that occasionally appear in the form of a batang. When we speak of a batang, here in Partido, when we say batang, it's a hardened wood log. And at times, it takes in the form of a big kasili or a big eel. So this batang sometimes takes the form of a big eel that can be seen in the lake. So they told us that they also take these forms. They take the form of batang and a big eel. So because of this story, the people dread to catch a fish on the lake for fear of getting sick or maldition as a consequence. So that's about the Libdong Lake narrated by Claveria. On the contrary, the Usipon of Kama, okay, the Usipon of Vicente Kama, which is titled as Ang Ginikanan kang Taong Lipod, accounts how the Taong Lipod came to be in existence. So if Libdong Lake talks about the origin of the lake in Payatan, here the story of Kama talks about the Taong Lipod. How the Taong Lipod came into existence. So according to Kama, he heard the story from his ancestors, narrated as, when Jesus Christ called for a meeting to all living creatures on earth to bless them, those beings who didn't arrive failed to receive his blessings, and they turned into invisible beings. So because of this account, the Taong Lipod are believed to be the unblessed humans. Okay, so the word Tao means human, while Lipod means covered. So though they are covered, though the Taong Lipod are covered, they can be seen by those with third eye, or they can be felt by others. And there are other told stories from the Agta of differing versions. However, which tell that when God created the world, he created two worlds. One for the humans and the other for the Taong Lipod. Other Visayan version, as told by Chodoro Agbayani, portrays that the Taong Lipod, or the Encanto, which is a generic class of Philippine spirits, or ang mga tao dili ingon na to, or the people not like us, as Cebuanos call them, were once given power by God, but they abused it. So they were swept away, and some fell to the earth, trees, and water. Others also believed that the Taong Lipod were fallen angels who revolted against God. So that's the story of those are the stories of creation, okay, as narrated by Claveria and Kama. Now, let us go to the 5, okay, recorded Usipon classified under the mystery of a ship. Okay, so about the 5 recorded Usipon classified under the mystery of a ship, they convey about the mystical existence of a property that is highly associated to Encanto. So the term Encanto is not a generic name for taong lipod, like the belief of the Cebuanos, as I mentioned earlier. Did I mention it earlier? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. So the term Encanto is not a generic name for taong lipod, like the belief of the Cebuanos. Rather, in Partido, the Agta Infertido believe that it's actually a type of taong lipod. So it's fascinating to note, however, that the Cebuanos' depictions of Encanto is similar to that of the Agtas. Okay, so they are in Caucasian appearance. They are handsome or beautiful. They have palatial mansions, and they serve banquet food, and they're also rich. So the mention of golden ship as depicted in told stories substantiates the common old folks' claim that Encantos are indeed affluent. They're really rich. So this ship allegedly appeared in many barangay rivers of Partido and Albay. Interestingly, the golden ship takes a different form, okay? Uh, which a form which is a batang. As I said earlier, when we speak of a batang, it's a hardened wood log. So when this golden ship sails in the rivers and transforms into a big ship when on seas, on board this ship is a rich Encanto who happens to inhabit the Mount Isarog, which is a national park and a protected area within the terrestrial jurisdictions of Tigaon and Goa and other municipalities in Camarines Sur. So when this ship traverses down the mountain streams down the mountain streams to the seas, it's believed to be loaded with commodities taken from the Mount Isarog to be traded in Manila or America. Or the Encanto, they would say that the Encanto would buy merchandise as depicted in the Usipon of Brigel, Flojo, Cano, and Belleza. So Brigel, Belleza, and Cano's Usipon are probably lifted or related to the famous story in the Rangas River in Barrio of Catagbacan, authored by Andrea Gomez, published in History of Goa, the book, The Historical and Cultural Heritage of the People, edited by James O'Brien, S.J. So I will no longer be narrating the stories of Belleza, Brigel, and Cano, because it will really take us a lot of time. Okay, so anyway, I'll be going to Hernandez's story. Okay, Palaganas Cerebanadina, Palaganas Hernandez. The story of Hernandez is titled Barkong Bulawan sa TV. So the story talks about the golden ship carved with the name Don Juan from TV. It is owned by Encanto. So the ship traveled to America loaded with Nawi. So the Americans saw it and traced that it was from Tiwi. They came and mined the place in order to look for the golden ship. When they were about to reach the bottom with gold, a certain woman appeared and went out and said that the ship is theirs. She made a compromise and told the Americans that in exchange of the golden ship, they will dissolve 7 towns. So the Americans, however, couldn't take the compromise. They couldn't risk the loss of 7 towns and the people. So that's the story of Barkong Bulawan in Tiwi as narrated by Hernandez. So lastly, I'll be narrating, or I'll be telling the story of Claridad. Okay, Claridad Sanchez. So we are now moving to the mystery of events. So as I said earlier, I'll be only mentioning one story from the mystery of events. So the title is Anbakang Bulawan Kang Isarog as narrated by Claridad Sanchez. So the story of Claridad Sanchez who narrated about the lighted thing that appeared on the sky, which she described to take the form of a cow. It happened when she was 7. It was dark and they were playing outside until she saw a lighted figure of a calf that suddenly appeared on the dark sky. It flew from Mount Isarog and headed towards Tangkong Baka. By the way, Tangkong Baka is the highest point in Lagunoy with an elevation of 3,050 feet above sea level. So that's Tangkong Baka. So its lighted appearance brightened the areas of the mountain. In support, she addedly narrated an experience about her cousin who had a first encounter with the owner of the golden calf, who allegedly happened to be a taong lipod. So her male cousin, whose wife had left for some reasons and who ultimately became alcoholic, was advised by this certain supernatural being to look for a salong. A salong is, in English, we call it resin. Okay? So he was asked to collect about half of a sack in order for his problems to disappear. So the taong lipod said that he has a ride parked in front of the house of her cousin. When they tried to see it, they saw the golden calf. Her cousin told this to their parents, but the parents explained not to do what he was told. Her cousin told this, so the taong lipod, the owner of the golden calf, was described to be tall and very handsome. So that's a taong lipod. That's how they describe the taong lipod, the owner of the golden calf. Very tall and very handsome. So the taong lipod reiterated that if her cousin would do what he had wished him to do, his problem would be solved. So he wished that the asupre be lighted up so the mountain would explode, so his problem would be over. The problem that the taong lipod was referring to was the intent of the people to mine the Mount Isarog. So when the people tried to mine the Mount Isarog, the golden calf would fly to Tangkong Baka to escape from mining. So others who had personally witnessed a sight of this object, however, claimed that the appearance of a horse and not a cow or calf, but equally is described as golden. Okay, so that's the story of mystery, as narrated by Claridad. So Claridad's and Hernandez's Barkong Bulawan sa Tiwi reflect actually a pressing societal issue relative to mining that undeniably, if continues to persist, would eventually lead to environmental degradation or worse, destruction. So as a consequence of the human acts, Hernandez's story cautions about the loss and destruction of 7 towns, while Claridad's Usipon warns about an explosion of Mount Isarog. So in other words, the stories are actually an articulation of human environmental relationship. The supernatural beings portrayed to be co-inhabitants of the Agta within their environment simultaneously function as guardians of nature. So in Partido, the Mount Isarog serves actually as the primary water source. not only of the Agta communities, but also of the non-Agta. It is the life force of the people living both in the upland and the lowland areas. If its abundant resource becomes depleted or destroyed, it is the humans that are significantly affected in the same manner that these invisible beings are affected. Okay, so that's all about the Usipon, okay, the told stories of the Agta in relation to a supernatural being. So most of their stories feature supernatural beings or um, types of supernatural beings or taong lipod. By the way, tomorrow, if you would like to attend the lecture of Ma'am Sheila Amoroso, she will be discussing about the taong lipod. So it will be further discussed in her lecture tomorrow. Okay. So now let's move to the Lihi. So the life of the Agta Partido is actually inseparable, from their environment. Okay, from which, as I said earlier at the beginning, their chief livelihood resource largely depends. So they actually get their livelihood resource from the mountain, from Mount Isarog. So this dependence on ecology has dramatically shaped their rich and growing culture that is highly demonstrated in the practice of their beliefs, or what is locally known as Lihi. So the articulation of these beliefs in many forms are categorized according to 8 themes. We have livelihood, which has 3 sub-themes, planting, fishing, and livestock farming. We also have pest prevention, marriage, building a house, child rearing, death, festivities, business-related beliefs, pregnancy, sickness, and spirit offerings. So these are the themes that you're able to gather based on the generated beliefs or lihi from the field. However, in this lecture, I will just be highlighting the planting and the pest prevention beliefs. Okay. So a large portion of the documented beliefs really come from planting. So most of these beliefs are practiced in order to have good crops. And they also practice this for fortune. So let's start with planting kamote. Or they call it pagibon kamote. So in planting kamote or in pagibon kamote, a man should commence the planting of the first 3 stalks of the sweet potato in order to yield big crops and to have plenty of harvest. The good quality of the produce is associated to the genital of a man who commences the planting, thereby leading to the abundance of the good quality crops during harvest. So if a woman commences the planting, the produce is believed to be of low quality and it's baraak or it's broken. So the quality of being broken is associated to the appearance of the genital of the woman. So this is one. Okay, this is one belief that they said about planting kamote. Another is they said that before planting, the paragibon or the one who is planting, okay, the paragibon, they call it paragibon, should steal a talohong. A talohong is a traditional stove for cooking. The traditional stove, they actually use 3 big stones in order to cook. Okay, so that's talohong. Okay, so before planting, they said that the paragibon should steal a talohong and bury it first in the hole of the planting area before the gabon. Okay, gabon is a stalk of sweet potato. So that means that they have to bury first the three stones used for cooking prior to planting of the gabon. So the gabon or the stalks, okay, the stalk of the sweet potato should be planted right on the top of the talohong or the traditional stove prior to filling it with soil. So the talohong or the traditional stove for cooking, which is composed of three big stones, okay, is said to bring fortune during harvest as the crops will grow as big as the size of the talohong. Okay. Also, they believe that the paragibon or the one who plants the kamote should practice first the pagwati. Pagwati, in English, they call it, in English, it's dialogue. So they have to do a dialogue with the taong lipod. They have to talk to the taong lipod. So they have to practice first pagwati with the taong lipod. The pagwati is actually done to appeal to the taong lipod that the plantation be spared from any infestation and be provided with good crops and harvest. And they also believe that the crops will be big if the paragibon or the one who plants kamote is a taguapi. Taguapi is a man. It's actually a man whose testicles are not of equal size or they're uneven. The testicles are uneven. So they believe that it's better to have a person who plants kamote who has testicles that are uneven. So it's more beneficial if the one who plants kamote is a taguapi, okay, who has testicles that are uneven. So the taguapi is said taguapi is said to bring luck to the planting. So in effect, many agta or those who would like to plant kamote, many actually look for and ask a taguapi to plant a kamote to bring fortune to their harvest. Okay, another is if the owner of a neighboring lot of a taguapi intends to plant kamote, he or she should plant ahead of the taguapi with his back facing the lot of the taguapi. Otherwise, if the taguapi plants ahead in his own lot, the neighboring lot will have poor harvest. So the act of turning his back on the taguapi's lot serves as an antidote to the misfortune that the taguapi will bring to his harvest. And at the onset of planting kamote, the paragibon should utter a prayer of a prayer which is amaniamo. Okay, so the Agta Infertido also believe in the prayer of amaniamo. So they said that the paragibon should utter a prayer amaniamo while simultaneously covering the gabon, okay, the gabon together with 5 seeds of tabog. Tabog is a variety of tree with small rounded fruits. And a balagon with one palm over the other. So to cover the gabon with soil, the paragibon should use the right fingers as tools, dragging the soil towards the gabon, ending with fingers intertwined while the palm covering the other. So the Agta believe that the loving Father provides good harvest, and so by uttering a prayer, the plant will be blessed and will produce healthy crops. So the adding of seeds is also believed to bring fortune for the harvest to be plenty. And the interlocking of fingers is believed to bring luck for sprouting of the vines that will eventually lead to abundant crops. Okay, so that's about planting of kamote. So those are the beliefs in planting kamote. Oh my gosh! Oh my god! I'm sorry. Okay, and next we have belief about planting rice or paghasok ng paroy. So they believe that in the open field on the mountain, the banhi, or when we say banhi, banhi means rice seedlings. So it's a local term for rice seedlings in Partido. So the banhi should be planted together with the seeds of chili, string beans, and other vegetables. So before planting, the parahasok, okay, when we say parahasok is anyone who plants rice. Okay? So before planting, they believe that the parahasok, okay, should walk around the area while praying three minatubod or the Apostles' Creed, and the mixture of other seeds and vegetables with the banhi or the seedlings will increase yield of paddy seeds according to them. Okay, so that's how they believe in the power of this belief, no, belief of planting rice. Okay, another is that the planting of rice is suggested to be done at 2 a.m. or before sunrise. So the parahasok or the one who plants the rice should ensure that the seedlings should be brought to the planting area before the sun rises. So a lemongrass, sugarcane, charcoal, and cross should also be brought, since this will be used to build a talagbinian or atagubanhian. At talagbinian or atagubanhian is actually it's like a tent-like structure. Okay, it's a tent-like structure. This is an arte or style in planting. So as I said earlier, they do have two definitions of uh, what's that, beliefs, I mean, of lihi. Okay, so they, one has arte and the other doesn't have arte. So this one is an arte. It's a style of planting. So atalagbirian or atagubanhian is built with the palay at the center with charcoal and surrounded with lemongrass, sugarcane, and a cross in order for the rice to germinate copiously. So in order for the rice to grow in upright position, the bungkol, or when you say bungkol, it's actually a bundle of palay. Okay, the bundle of palay or the bungkol should lean on the basisi. Okay, when we speak of the basisi, basisi is actually a bamboo with sharp edge at one end, which is used to form a hole in the soil to plant the seedling. Okay, so it's like just a bamboo, okay, with a sharp edge in order to create a hole, to dig the soil, okay, to form a hole. Okay, so they use basisi, okay, in order for the rice to grow in upright position. Okay, so that's about planting rice. Lastly, let's talk about pest prevention beliefs. So one of the problems that the Agta in Partido encountered in making their plantation a success is actually the existence of nuisances in the environment that may cause damage to their plantation, which can actually affect greater yield of their uh, uh, crops or plantation. So in this regard, they have also established a set of beliefs to combat this dilemma. So a notable solution is for them is actually to look for a kapirosa. A kapirosa is actually a person who was born wrapped in a water bag. A person who was born wrapped in a water bag. So a caperosa is considered a lucky charm and an effective way to protect plantation against infestations. So once a caperosa is found, a caperosa is actually asked to walk around the area to ward off rodents, particularly the rats. So by doing this, it's believed that these rats, the rodents, are prevented from infesting their plantations. So another belief is making an offering to the taong lipod. So again, I said earlier that they actually believe in supernatural beings. So they believe that making an offering to the taong lipod is actually a gesture that can help to stop the rats or rodents from infesting their crops. They believe that the taong lipod have control over the rats or the rodents because they're considered to be the pets of taong lipod. So that's how the Agta believe about um, about these rats or these rodents that um, infest their plantations. They are actually the pets of taong lipod, so they have to offer to the taong lipod. Okay. Lastly, they have to have a dialogue with the rats. Okay. So having a dialogue with a rat in a humble, in a very kind manner, and calling them señorita or amigo, asking them not to infest their plantation, is also believed to be an effective way to ward them off. So they do not just talk to the taong lipod, but they also talk to these pets of taong lipod. Okay. So that's about the pest preventing beliefs. Okay, so in summary, okay, so let me now go to um, my conclusion. So in summary, the Usipon, the Usipon and Lihi of Agta Infertido largely depict their dominant belief on the existence of supernatural beings in their environment, which are believed to coexist with them, wherein they communicate warnings in relation to preservation and conservation of the environment as they actually perpetrate fear among the people not to invade areas known to be abode of the supernatural entities which they benefit from, because resource exploitation and resource use are minimized. So the Usipon can also be an avenue to delve deeper on the culture of Agta, since this study is just a documentation of their Usipon and Lihi. So it can be an avenue to delve deeper on the culture of Agta, which fosters an admixture of their native knowledge and that of the mainstream society. So the Lihi serve as their guide in the performance of their roles in the society, and also to interact harmoniously within their environment and to maintain good relationships with the human and non-human beings. So in the contemporary world, it's this recognition on the importance of balance and harmony with all life forms is actually an imperative taking. Okay, so that ends my lecture for this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Sen, for that very informative lecture. Okay, so at this point, we are now open for questions and comments from our participants. Okay, so while our participants are still reflecting on the new information that they have learned from our speaker, and I guess constructing their questions, let me take this opportunity to once again thank the sponsors for this Balongibog lecture series, the Museo de Isarog with the curator Earl John Hernandez, the Center for Partido Studies, directed by Dr. Danilo Herona, the Partido Institute of Economics, directed by Roland John Bulao, the College of Arts and Sciences, headed by the Dean Erlinda Basilia, the School of Graduate Studies, headed by the Dean sino nga yun? Okay, and the Pasfeco Museum Student of Volunteers. This Zoom-abled webinar will not be made possible without the generous support from our Office of the University President, Dr. Raul G. Bradesina, and the Office of the Board Secretary, Ms. Leanne Odonio. Okay, so we have several questions now from our Zoom and from Facebook. So we also have a number of participants from Facebook. So thank you for tuning in with us this afternoon. So first question, Ma'am Sen. Ready ka na po?
Hopefully, I could answer all of the questions that will be given.
Okay. So our first question from our fellow colleague from PSU, Sir Kennedy Kuya. He commented on Facebook. The question is, I read, ano yun, the size of the testicle is the probable size of the kamote. And a follow-up question, how about women planting kamote? I guess this is from your what you've mentioned earlier on.
Okay, so as I said earlier, they believe that if the paragibon is a taguapi is someone who has an uneven testicles. It the crops will be much bigger, if I'm not mistaken. So what's actually the question, Sir Ken? Or Ma'am?
The second question po is regarding so how about women planting kamote?
Yeah, actually they do not recommend women planting kamote because of the size of the genitals. So they associate the appearance of the kamote with the genitals of the one who plants the kamote. So it's gonna be broken according to them. But
Okay,
it's gonna be bigger if the paragibon is male or a taguapi.
Another question coming from one of our participants in the Zoom, or also our colleague also from the university, Sir Charlie Balagtas. So his question is, what do you think is the most important lesson you had when you were doing this study?
Okay, the most important lesson um I actually I think that in doing research about indigenous peoples, we really have to take into consideration um, their culture. So when we go to their place, we have to consider the ethical considerations. Uh, uh, the ethical considerations that must be considered in doing research or in dealing with them.
Thank you. Sir Earl, do you have any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Sen, for first agreeing to join our conversation for this panel, and um, thank you for delivering a very good lecture. So I just have a few clarifications, if it's okay. Um, yung these practices, these stories, are these um nagpapadagos pa? Like, are this still being practiced, or ginagawa pa in a particular community that you've worked with? So that's one.
One.
Second, in you've been mentioning plantation. Are we? Can you describe um, the 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 communities of IPs? Like, are they doing it on a small scale or large scale communities, and that's why they need to do a plantation for
Okay.
sort of agricultural practices.
Okay. So for the first question, ano, first question is, ano yung first question mo? Sorry. First question, if they are still doing the practice of lihi. Yeah. Yes. Actually, I actually highlighted the beliefs in planting because they are still practicing, okay, the beliefs about planting kamote or planting rice. So it's still in their culture. They still practice all of the beliefs regarding the planting. And as to the plantation, as I said at the beginning, most of or one of their livelihood resource is they do work with someone who has maybe land. Okay, so they do plant other um in other persons lot or lands. It doesn't mean that they own plantation. They work they work in other people.
Can I do a follow-up question?
Sure.
Okay. So yung relationship on the practice. So
Believe.
since they're using someone's land, so that's not part of their community. So are I mean, are we saying that land that doesn't owned by the community, or someone in the community, like a land outside of the community, land owned by someone outside of the community?
Okay. So
Like,
some do own lands. Some just work for other um people, or yeah, other people who own lands or plantations.
okay.
But if you're referring about their ownership about the lands, what I know about that is some do have ownership.
Okay, thanks. Vanessa?
Okay, thank you so much. We still have two more questions, bro. Kaya pa mo, Sen?
Sige lang.
Okay, another question from our colleague from the university, Ma'am Janet Cladera. Uh, She asked, Sen, if you'll rank those Usipon and Lihi, which do you think is the most known or practiced by many?
I think in terms of Usipon, the most known is the golden ship. Okay, it's very popular, not only in the Agta communities but in the entire Partido, I think. So that's one, the golden ship, the story about the golden ship. In the practice of Lihi, as I said earlier, I think that is actually the reason why I highlighted the planting of kamote and planting of rice because um their beliefs in the planting of rice and planting kamote because they really practice their beliefs in planting.
Thank you po. Another question from uh, this time one from Mamsel Atole. So her question is, are these practices also similar to other IPs or are they specific to Agta here in Partido?
Are the practices similar to other IPs
Or
in
is it
terms of
specific in
planting?
Partido?
Uh, in Partido. I think there are practices that are also similar to other IPs in the Philippines or even here in Bicol. Or are they specific? Yeah. There are practices that are also similar to other IPs. I think in
Okay.
particular with the planting.
Okay po. Okay, another question from one of our students in PSU po. Si Dan by Dan Alerta in the Q&A box in the Zoom. So the question is, there are also stories po about golden sheep dito po sa Karamoan. What are the possible connections po kaya?
Possible connections. I think I cannot answer the question about the possible connection because we have not studied it yet. So, as I said in the beginning of the lecture, that this could be a gateway. Our documentation of Usipon and Lihi could be a gateway to, gateway for future studies to dig deeper about the culture of Agta in particular.
Okay po. Ayan. So, do we still have more questions? Oh, yes po. Another
Yes,
one.
hearing a child.
Okay, from Mel Sangalang. So, do you have any gathered info or practices with regards to lihi, specifically it rearing a child?
Yes, ma'am. I just limited my presentation to planting, but there are also lihi or beliefs about the reading of a child. Maybe we can just talk about it offline.
And I think we still have another question from Facebook, but I can't access it. Sir Earl, can you please read the question?
Okay, hello. There's a question from Roland Catolico. Good afternoon po. Ask lang po if there is an authentic dance steps or dance rituals or routines during the rituals, example, planting that is also observed as of today po. Thank you.
Can you repeat that, sir?
Okay.
If there are what? If there
Uh,
are
authentic
rituals?
dance steps or dance
Steps.
rituals, dance
A
steps or
dance.
dance rituals. Yeah.
Dance
In related
steps.
to planting rituals. Yeah.
Dance steps. We did not come across with any dance steps as regards planting kamote or planting rice. There are none. There are
Not yet.
no. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe for the future, these are future research um, researches that the our participants or other researchers can look into, so that maybe in the future we can find the answers now for these questions.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any more questions? Wala na po ba? Okay. So to wrap things up po for your lecture or for your lecture, Ma'am Sen, so can you give some advice to those who would want to venture on researches similar to what you are pursuing po, or studying the indigenous peoples communities. So, any advice na pwede niyo pong maibigay sa mga
Sa
gustong mag-venture sa research on indigenous peoples communities?
advice. Okay. So actually, I already gave a lecture 2 weeks ago about um, how to engage in research about indigenous about indigenous peoples. And um, I said that one of the challenges in doing research about indigenous peoples is actually getting three three prior informed consent. So we actually able we were able to get consent from the IPs 6 months after filing the 6 months after filing our request to do research. So it's not actually easy to um, get consent from them, since there are several meetings that we have to do with them. And of course, since we had to meet them, we had to do several meetings. It also entailed money or um, financial needs. Okay, so we have to ensure that when we do research about IPs, or if we would like to engage in research about the IPs, we have to ensure that we do have funding, because it is really a must to have funding. Otherwise, we won't be able to pursue our research. What else? About publication. Okay, so it's not also easy to publish research about IPs, especially that or if you will be getting a lot of information from them. Um, you still have to seek permission from them. So if you already have sought consent from them to do research, about their culture, you still have to ask permission. So you have to gather them again in order to seek permission for your research to be published. So it's another meeting with them. And that's it.
And with that, in behalf of the organizing committee of the Bulongibog Lecture Series, we thank you so much, Ma'am Sen, for taking the time to share your knowledge for the Bulongibog lecture. Thank you so much, Ma'am Sen.
Thank
Thanks, Ma'am
you.
Sen.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Uh,
And we also thank our dear participants for attending this lecture. So we hope to see you again tomorrow. So tomorrow's lecture will be delivered by Assistant Professor Sheila Amoroso of the College of Education of our university, Partido State University. So her talk is entitled Mga Tawong Lipod Pagmidbid sa Lokal na Pagtubod nin Agtang Tabangnon kang Partido. So that's tomorrow, July 30, 2020 at 4 p.m. Philippine time. Okay.
Thank you.
Also for those who want an e-certificate for this lecture, we have given the link in the chat box for the Zoom participants. And for our FB participants, please do check the comment section of the FB Live for the Google Form link. Okay, so yan. Once again, thank you so much and we hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you, Monsen.